sales is the most lucrative skill in the world, period. The problem is most sales advice out there today is outdated, cheesy, and can even keep you from getting the deals that can make all the difference in your career. This is the No BS Sales School, a podcast for entrepreneurs and salespeople who want to master the skill of selling without all the BS. Welcome to the No BS Sales School podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. Today, I'm so excited to have a buddy of mine, John Morris, on the podcast. John has 20 years in sales, marketing, branding, and communications, and he's currently focused on building the Club Colors brand, media presence, communication style, messaging, and culture to drive internal success and external awareness. John, you're going to be able to explain what all that stuff means, right?
Boy, I hope so.
So today, we're going to talk about why it's important to focus on company culture right now, because John is an expert on that. So welcome to the show, man. I'm so glad you're here.
Walker, this is awesome. I appreciate it. It's great to be on the other side of the mic. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's fun to be the guest, isn't it?
Yeah, right?
So, John, why don't you, you're an accomplished guy. You've done a whole bunch of things. Can you take a couple of minutes and just kind of tell me how you got to where you are today? What's your story?
Yeah, so I'm not going to bore anybody, but I'll make it short and sweet. I actually am a product of a large Irish Catholic family with a successful set of siblings and father, and of course the CEO of the Morris organization, which would be my mother, youngest of 6 kids, right? So she was the general, man. Really had a pretty amazing upbringing, and really went through some trials and tribulations as it relates to where was I gonna go with my life. School was not my thing. Was not good at school, so kind of learned from the school of hard knocks, a lot of failure, had to dust myself off, get back up, and found the sales game. And, the coolest thing about kind of the direction the world is going right now is degrees are awesome, and I'm certainly not in any way saying that folks shouldn't go get a degree and get a higher education. Please do, but it's not right for everybody.
Yes.
And sometimes, the journey to success is not linear, right? Goes like this. Well, mine went like
so
this
right about
and like that.
Yeah.
All right. Mine went all kinds of different directions, and, my journey still continues. But I had the ability to have some pretty close friends that kind of were always looking out for me and made a recommendation that I go work for this consulting firm. And some folks took me under their wing, got some significant training, been trained in spin selling. We had talked earlier about the E-Myth.
Yep.
I've gone through the Sandler sales training. And I had the luxury of interacting with small business owners for a living, right? So, the best way to learn how to understand business is to talk to business people on a regular basis.
100%.
You will learn every obstacle, every challenge. I got an MBA from talking with small business owners and entrepreneurs for a living, telling me what their challenges are, what their concerns were, what their goals were, and how they were stuck running the business instead of owning the business.
Right.
There's a big difference, right, between running the business and owning the business. So I got a higher education. I got a PhD in what it's like to be an entrepreneur. From the other side of the table, as I was trying to influence these business owners that, hey, look, you're great at what you do, you're fantastic, but there's another way, there's a better way that will allow you to reap the benefits of your hard work. Working 80 hours a week, and you're the second, third highest paid employee of your company, right? Because if you do the math, you're making X amount of money. Yeah, you might be the highest paid, but when you break it down to the amount of hours that you're putting in per hour, you're making the third, fourth highest per hour at your own organization. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? That transitioned me to, an obvious transition to go from consulting to investment banking to credit card processing to branding, marketing, and promotional products. Smooth transition, right?
Sounds like you can't keep a job anywhere.
Exactly. Nobody wants me. But I got to tell you, like the beginning of my career, I was having an out-of-body experience because there's a level of accountability in that type of sale. You're holding somebody accountable. Like to their challenges, to their problems.
Yep.
And
Yep.
a business owner tends to not want to admit to challenges that concerns their business with some stranger, right? Advisors, consultants. Consultant is like a bad word to a small business owner.
There are two things. I love somebody told me the best definition of consultant was a nicer way to say unemployed.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So this is why a lot of companies have gone from consultant to advisor, right? And trying to soften that up, if you say that word. But the transition of sales style has just been therapeutic for me.
So so you transition from the old meet 'em, greet 'em, propose 'em, close 'em, Dale Carnegie thing to a much more consultative.
Yes. So the sales style was hand-to-hand combat. It was confrontation and conflict. And out of the conflict came resolution. Most of the people that said yes to me said, fine.
Right.
Not like, this is so awesome, I can't wait, I'm so excited. They said, fine. Send your guy in, fine, right?
Yes.
And then we had to show it, prove it, and then it was months later where they would be like, okay, thank God that you twisted my arm and held me accountable. My life's changed. Yeah. In that time frame, though, you're like, I hope this works, right? It was tough for me to live that way. I tend to like immediate gratification, which I think a lot of people do. Yeah. And it was also that ground and pound, like next.
Yeah.
This style is very rewarding. You're kind of holding their hand. You can see the impact of their culture. There's a product tied to it, so it's creating an experience. It's creating a feeling for their brand. It's creating a reaction that's immediate. Somebody opens up a box with a nice shirt that's logoed. By the way, this shirt's from Alpha Broder. They sent this to me. It's beautiful. I haven't had it logoed yet, but they put their logo on there. They open that up, and it's an experience. They feel something. They feel pride of brand. They feel fashion forward, and they feel proud to go out and wear that and represent that. Well, who doesn't like to sell that, right? That's a whole different experience. So what's the hardest part about selling what you sell, which is branded products and a branded product experience? Is that correct? Yes.
Did I miss that?
Yes. So we're a full service brand management firm. We do get pigeonholed as a t-shirt company or as a embroidery company, or we sell coffee mugs. As I was saying to you earlier, if somebody in our building says Chotsky, they might end up in a headlock. We create experiences for clients. We just happen to use, product as a vehicle to create that experience, but it's so much more. The hard part for us is a couple things. Number one, there's 24,000 companies approximately that are considered competitors or in our industry.
Right. They would say they did the same thing.
Yes. And, it might be two guys in a space with one manual screen print machine, and they produce 500 T-shirts in a week, and they're considered competition. But it's a different animal. And fantastic, great business. Probably not going to compete with them. And then you've got the huge conglomerate companies that are, in many cases, less about purpose, more about move product. And then you've got the huge firms that are working with some of the elite top 10, top 25 brands in the nation. We found our sweet spot in intimate partnerships. So the hard part for us is getting folks to give us that one first shot. Right. Because once folks give us that first shot and understand the experience, and when I say premium isn't product. Product is premium. We could select any product. There's 9 million SKUs. Premium, though, is the experience. How the staff communicates with you, how they make you feel, how they follow up with you, the technology that is used, even down to whether or not you have an issue with a product where, let's say, the thread's not the right color or whatever. How is that resolved?
Right.
One thing that we did was we managed our business on the front end pretty well, where we don't make a lot of mistakes. The industry's got a 2 to 3% error rate. Ours for the last 2 years has been under 0.5%. Under 0.5%. So when you manage the back end of your business, that means on the front end, if we do make a mistake, we can just fix it at no cost and solve it. So it's essentially a guarantee.
So tell me something. You in our discussion earlier, You talked a lot about how what you do impacts culture.
Yes.
Will you talk more about that? Will you share some of that?
Sure. I think that far too often employees look at what they're doing at their organization as a job instead of as a career and as an experience. And I think it's up to the organization to change that mindset. If your staff feels that they have a job, that means that they're coming in, they're punching the clock, and they're not fully engaged. It doesn't mean that they're not taking care of their clients or following systems, controls, and procedures, but it doesn't mean that they feel part of a community, a movement, and something bigger than themselves, right? A greater purpose, right? Well, I believe that it's up to an organization, especially in 2022, the age that we live in, to fuel that. Now, that became very much challenged over the last couple years as folks have gone from in office to hybrid or fully remote.
I get that question all the time, is how the hell do we build a culture around, when nobody's in the office? I mean, it is difficult.
Communication, rewards, recognition, incentive. By the way, incentive does not always have to be financial.
No.
And now, there might be a cost to a product, but it might be a $45 apparel piece that has the company logo on it and says, "You've been tremendous this month," embroidered on it. Or it just says the company logo and it comes in a nice kit, and in that is a handwritten card, also logoed, from that manager and the executive team saying, "We wish that we could be next to you, but understand you're always in our hearts and our minds. Thank you for your service, what you've done." Putting things together where you can, through virtual, create a gamified experience, recognizing folks, taking a half hour out of a week to get on a call just to recognize the tremendous work that somebody did last week, and then backing that with some sort of a gift or a product, even if whether it's for an employee or a client or a prospective client, these things kind of make the memory last, right? If I compliment you, that lasts for a moment. If I compliment you with a card and a gift, every time you put that shirt on or that quarter zip on, it takes you back to the compliment. So that lasts longer. So now you get a bigger brand impression, you get a bigger cultural impression out of that experience. And I think that far too often folks want to incentivize, but hey, you got a gas card. Hey, you got this $40 this. Okay, well, once I fill up my tank of gas, I'm done. I don't remember that anymore.
Yep.
Right? So what we are finding, and we've done as an organization to make sure that we maintain the culture, is we've upped the communication, we've upped the amount of recognition, and we've used, whether you use Microsoft Teams or some other platform within your organization, make certain that you're reading statistical data, you're recognize people for their facilitating and following through of core values for the organization. Right? If you've got a set of 5, 6, 7 core values for the organization, first off, make sure that everyone in the organization is aware of those. And then on top of that, when somebody actually does something consistent with that core value, recognize it and reward it so that it fuels that culture.
Got it. I like that because, a lot of companies just put the core values on the wall. It's something that somebody did on a freaking whiteboard. They throw it up on the wall. It never gets mentioned again.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but like we just re-upped, kind of our culture committee process. And we've done a video where we've essentially now broken down what each core value is, and we've got key employees talking about that particular, kind of defining it, and then we'll launch that video internally, and then we'll launch it externally, and that'll keep going through, and then we'll create rewards and recognition and incentive off of folks, being stewards to that core value with our clients and within the organization. So you constantly are fueling that, and that creates an experience for people. And the other thing is, the challenge with culture now, too, is you've got sales kickoff meetings that are going to be all virtual. How do you keep people completely engaged through that 4-hour meeting? Now, I knew how to do it before because I would be walking around the room and I could go put my hand on your shoulder and you were in the third row while I was speaking, and I could make direct eye contact with you and hold that for 2 minutes in that sales kickoff meeting.
Yep.
And now I've got you for the next 20 minutes because I held contact with you for 2 minutes, right? How do you do that virtually? Right? It's tough to tell right now if you're looking at me or looking at a computer screen and we're doing a podcast. Right?
Yes.
So how do you do that when 40 people are on screen? So creating, like pre-gifting before the virtual show, creating a hashtag to be consistent with that with a live chat stream going on there, having 5 or 6 questions to keep people's engagement. And if they answer the question right off of the last speaker, somebody wins a gift that's company logoed. So you might be spending some money on that, but you're saving money because you're not flying people in. It's all virtual. Take that expenditure and put it into gifts. Give somebody a logoed golf bag because they answered a question which showed their engagement in the sales kickoff. What do you do in the sales kickoff meeting for if people aren't getting some value out of it and actually understanding the company vision so they carry it out in 22? You've got to influence that. And so that's when people think of Club Colors, we need them to think about, we're not the t-shirt people. Yes, we can do that. We can do that, absolutely. But we want to talk about how do we make your brand explode with positivity, recognition, and a feeling, creating an experience for your staff and everyone that comes in contact with your business. So how do we fuel your culture, which ultimately is your brand?
So you talked about upping communication with people, and that was one of the most important things is, with all this remote workers, which I got to be honest, I don't know if in a couple of years that'll be much different. I think that remote work is here to stay, for better or for worse. For better or for worse, I think it's what it is. But it's just it's one of those things like when the power went out in New York 25, 30 years ago, and people had to walk to work because the subways weren't working, and people started wearing tennis shoes and comfortable clothes to work. That shit never turned around either. So same thing here. I don't know that we're ever going back to everybody in the office. You talked about over communicate or communicate more. What does that mean?
So win sharing, man. I mean, win sharing. Like, I just salespeople. First off, we talk about mental health. We talked a little bit about this. One of the biggest components to depression is isolation.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but we've got sales teams across the country working virtually that are on their own for 8 hours, 9 hours a day. And I appreciate as a salesperson not being micromanaged, but I always like to be micro-supported when I was in sales. I liked when I did something great for somebody to, sometimes you do something great and because you're doing it, you can't see that you did something great. So I loved being in an environment where I said something and I just came out naturally and the guy next to me would go, dude, what you just said was amazing. I'm using that. Well, then I went, holy cow, did I say that? And then I wrote that down and then we both were using it. Now we created a momentum. Man, just win sharing across the board has got to be upped within organizations. What does that mean? Well, for us, what we started doing through teams is if you made a sale, or you did something great with a client, or a client gave tremendous feedback on a job well done, take 20 seconds, type that up, and hit call center or hit everyone and send it to the whole building. Fuel the energy in the building. I always talk to people when we hire them. I say, look, you're going to find that the culture at Club Colors is tremendous. I'm going to ask you one favor. Don't come in and suck from the culture. I need you to come in and add to the culture. Add your personality. Add your voice to the culture. Add to the culture like a snowball. When you roll it, it keeps getting bigger. You can't just be taken from that snowball.
So question for you. A lot of people talk about hiring for culture first. Do you believe in that?
Yes.
So how the hell does somebody hire for culture? What does that mean?
Well, first and foremost, there's great companies out there. I'll drop a little plug to our client Claudine Saxon or our vendor at Culture Index, and I'm sure there's a ton of other companies out there. But what they do is they do these personality type tests. So before we do any type of interview, we look at personality, and in fact, we put more stock into that than I think we do the resume, Because the reality is we've got great training of systems, controls, and procedures. And personally, we like to hire outside of the industry and bring people in because we think sometimes when we hire people within the industry, they've got established habits, good, bad, or indifferent.
And beliefs about what can work and what can't work. Yes.
And it's tough to kind of modify that and get them to buy into our differentiator because they were selling some other differentiator before.
Agreed.
So we kind of like to hire towards personality type and then train them on all the systems, controls, and procedures. The other thing is if you're hiring a persuader personality and putting them into a sales support role, you're going to have an issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Go more into that because you and I are tracking on this. Say more about that.
All right. So a sales support role is going to be probably more attention to detail, analytical, process, procedure, data, right? And they're supplying that account manager who's going to be kind of an in-between of the sales support personality, and the account manager's got to have attention to detail, but also has to have some persuasion. A pure persuader personality, more likely, is best in business development, where they're going to go out, they're going to tip of the spear, create the energy, get somebody riled up, and then give it to the people that actually have the attention to detail to follow through, right? So I think that if those things are not done, you end up putting somebody in a position to fail. And then you get mad at them that they're not successful. Well, you put them in the wrong spot. So one of the reasons why our retention rate and our turnover is under 10%, which is unheard of.
It's unheard of.
In our field. It's pretty outstanding. Isn't because we're the greatest managers in the world. It's because of the process up front of making sure that we get people in the right seats. Obviously, we have people that will apply for a role in business development, and we'll look at their personality type, and they're kind of more of an administrator. Well, there's still a role in the organization. It might not be the role that they think. Right. So they'll either go somewhere else, or we'll put them in that role, and they'll come back to us 6 months later and go, thank God, this is tremendous. This is exactly a perfect fit for me, because they didn't even know themselves. Right?
Yeah, a lack of self-awareness, don't know exactly what it is. What are the blocks that build out what they are? Because, again, the only head we've ever lived in is our own.
And the other thing, too, is people have a perception of themselves. Yeah. That this is their destiny. This is the role they should be in. Why? Because 3 of their friends are great at it. And they're want to be like their friends, right? And their personality just does not fit that. So
we see this a lot when people see, people automatically see, or a lot of people see a promotion from sales into sales management. And those are two completely different skill sets, two completely different, if you'll give it, personalities. And often if companies do this all the time and they take their best salesperson, make them sales manager, and then you take your best sales guy out of the field or he doesn't stop selling and he helps the other sales guys not learn how to close.
And by the way,
he wants to come take it over.
It's probably likely, in my experience, what I've seen, the best salesperson in the company typically is not tremendously engaged with the rest of the team from a training and teaching. And they are so, and by the way, cool, go play, baby. Go do your thing. Cause everyone have to try and catch you. Just go, baby, go. I've found, and even in my own life, I was never the number one sales guy, but I was always the person who was a little bit harder to figure out. So I had to figure out the system, which made me good at teaching the system. I was good enough to get recognition. I was good enough to be able to have people say, well, I can learn from this guy. I was never the top salesperson, but I was right for management because I knew how to inspire. I was willing to teach. I wanted to see other people perform. And by the way, I got more motivated by other people's success because I said 3 things to them and they implemented it and they did it better than I ever even did it or better than I said it. That fueled my tank.
So you were the guide. You were the guide, which is what is a lot of my program, right, is talking about having actually the salesperson themselves become a guide because natural salespeople want to be the hero. I think sales management, especially, it's important to be a guide. So I love what you've done there. Can I share with you a couple things that I have that I've learned from you today?
Please.
been very interesting. A couple things. One, you talked about recognizing people for following core values. I think that's worth $1 million right there, because number one, you want to make sure that your core values are public and they're known and they're all part of it. And when somebody shows that they are following that, have done something to align with that, you recognize them. That's super. I also like the word that you used here. I don't want to be micromanaged, but I want to be micro-supported. Micro-supported is badass. That's a great word, and I appreciate it very, very much. I'm going to steal that from you if you don't mind.
It's all yours, baby.
John, tell me something. Where would somebody find you if they wanted to talk to you more about what you do? What's the best way for them to find you?
Absolutely. First off, I'm crazy. I'll give you my phone number. It's 224-730-9360. Call me, text me, find me. I'm here. Whatever you want to talk about. You want to talk about club colors, you want to talk about sales, you want to talk about life, you want to talk about who's going to win the Super Bowl, I'm game. Let's go.
One more time. Give the telephone number one more time. Give it one more time.
224-730-9360. As it relates to finding me, go to my LinkedIn page. You'll see a clover in front and a clover in back, John Morris. And you can also go to the Club Colors page. Follow us on our YouTube channel, Club Colors YouTube channel. That's where our podcast In the Club is. And our website is www.clubcolors.com. So you can see all the fancy and amazing things that we do. We're licensed with over 1,000 universities. And we work with major corporations like Philips, LKQ, and so on. So we're doing some amazing things. Hopefully we can do those things for you.
That's great, John. I really appreciate that. No BS Sales Team, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode with John Morris from Club Colors. All his information will be in the show notes, so you can find it there. If you have not already, please give me 5 stars on the podcast. Review, give me 5 stars. It really, really does help with visibility. We're already a top 2% podcast. So come on, help me raise that thing up. Also, I've got one giveaway if you want to look into it. I've got a mini course that I'm offering for free. It's called 7 Sales Mistakes. Seven common sales mistakes that are probably costing you a lot of money. If you want access to that mini course, you can have it for free. Go to www.7salesmistakes.com. Download it, enjoy those things, and implement one of the things in that, at least one of the things one time, and see what happens. John Morris, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you very much. You've been a great guest.
Walker, it's been a pleasure. By the way, if you don't take advantage of the fact that Walker is going to give you that training, this guy's got years and years of experience. He's taken people from $500,000 in sales to $2 million in sales. You got to be out of your mind if you don't try and sign up for that and take advantage of that. The guy's been trained and he's doing it. He lives it. Go take advantage.
Thank you, John. That's awesome. I appreciate you very much.